Hi, my name is Lisa Martin. I am the mother of a child with special needs. He has Fragile X syndrome. In many respects, he has been my teacher. He has made me be a more caring, compassionate, better human being. What we have learned together on our journey, I have realised the difficulties and challenges that parents of special needs children face are wide and varied. During my years of facilitating courses for parents and professionals, I have met some wonderful people who have shared with me their stories of great joy and sadness, who have experienced the good, the bad and the ugly of all aspects of life bringing up their special children. I am passionate about empowering parents who are dedicated in helping their children with additional needs. You're invited to my podcast. I will be talking about all things in our special world of disability and additional needs. I will be interviewing other parents of children with special needs, as well as professionals and people in the community who are offering services that help. Sometimes these podcasts might touch an emotional nerve and upset you. Other times they might fill you with joy and empower you. I don't mean to make you angry or upset, but we need to get a wider audience listening and talking about disability. Only when this happens, I believe disability won't be feared as it is today. Hello, my name's Lisa Martin and I'd like to introduce Sam to the good, the bad and the ugly. Hello Sam.
Hi.
So Sam has 2 children. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your children, Sam?
So I have Brook, who is 8, and she has no additional needs apart from dyslexia. And then I have Tyler, who is nearly 11, and he's a bit more complex, shall we say. So he's been diagnosed with ADHD. They think he's got ASD, but we're just waiting for the last part of the assessment. He has a mild form of Tourette's and dyslexia as well.
Yeah, okay. So how old was Tyler when he got the diagnosis of ADHD?
He was 7 when he got diagnosed with ADHD. Right. He got referred when he was 3, but it takes a long time and I don't like diagnosing children under the age of 7 with ADHD unless they really have to. Yeah. So it's kind of a waiting game. You go on all these courses, etc., etc. But yeah, we got there in the end.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about his autism as well, because it's been taking a really long time, hasn't it, for him to be on this waiting list and getting assessed and everything with the ASD?
Yeah, it's taken a few years because obviously when a child has ADHD, it kind of crosses over with ASD, so they don't necessarily see it. So once you've kind of seen the ADHD, then you start to see all the other bits that kind of come out of the ASD side, which can be the other way around. So you get diagnosed with autism, and then they start looking at ADHD. But because they cross over, they go with the one that's more prominent at the time, and then they kind of go off that, and then they can start diagnosing afterwards if there's more stuff. But yeah, it's been a few years now, so we're just waiting for the end. But because it's already in his EHCP plan, it's kind of already there, so everything he needs kind of school-wise will be in place anyway.
Oh, that's good. So he's getting his needs met.
Yeah,
that's great.
So when we done the EHCP plan, it was kind of we made sure it was already in the EHCP plan. So then even if we're still waiting another year or 2 for the diagnosis, it's still there and he's still able to get the support with the bits that he needs to be able to deal with being in a mainstream school.
So he's only just been getting the educational healthcare plan done. That's a recent thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that go?
It went okay. I'm still fighting the wording because it's very vague and it's not completely finished, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So with an EHCP plan, you have to be very specific in the wording because otherwise they don't necessarily have to meet their needs because it's not worded in that way.
Yeah, and quantify.
So
the 2 words for educational healthcare plans are specific and quantify. And this is how you've got to get the professionals to write it, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So well done you. So tell me a little bit about when you started feeling that Tyler might have more than the ADHD and you thought some of the behaviours that he was doing weren't necessarily ADHD, it was more autism behaviour.
Well, he always kind of had like little quirky bits. So like he would put the hand towels in the sinks in the nursery and then kind of switch them all on and then just let them overflow and then kind of walk out and just leave the bathroom to flood kind of the whole nursery. So, but I kind of knew that wasn't like part of ADHD, but they usually just say, you know, ADHD, bad behaviour, etc., etc. So they just kind of look at it that way. But he's always been quite specific in what he does and when he does it and why he doesn't like things to change, and he doesn't like to have like no notice about things not changing, so you have to tell him in advance, otherwise he just won't, you can't do it, it's just not going to happen, and then it will just...
So he likes routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anything's going to change or you're going to do anything, you have to give him more than enough time in order for him to get his head around it in order to be able to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's always kind of been that way, and you can't just say, oh, let's go to the shop. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, you can't be impulsive with him. He needs to plan.
He needs structure, and he needs
prepare.
to know what's going to happen, when he's going to go, what time, what's expected of him when he goes, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot more planning than just saying, oh, let's pop to the shop for a 4-pinter of milk.
Yeah. Yeah, that must be challenging for you as well, is it? Because everything's regimented, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 So that must make you feel quite anxious, as well as him being anxious as well.
Yeah, but he just does. I don't think he likes like large groups of people.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like, you know, like busy places like the shops. Like, because then he just like looks at everything and then he just kind of gets a bit overwhelmed. Like even with choosing trainers, like he'll come out the shop, then go back into a different shop, then look in a different shop, then go back to the first shop, and then he'll still decide on a pair of trainers maybe 2 days later. It's too much choice. It's too much.
Right.
He needs to try them on. He needs to feel them on his feet. It's not just, oh, here's a pair of trainers. It doesn't work that way.
Wow. Do you think he's got sensory processing disorder?
Yeah.
As part and parcel of the autism as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like certain things, like he won't wear polo t-shirts because he doesn't like the collars on them. He doesn't like the way the material was made from polo t-shirts. He doesn't like any form of jeans or trousers necessarily, unless they're soft kind of touch trousers.
Yeah, he likes tracksuit bottoms a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he doesn't like trousers and how they feel on his skin. And he finds them quite itchy and irritating, and he doesn't like things like touching his legs too much.
Yeah, that's quite common. So he's also got the Tourette's as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's a mild form, but I think when people say Tourette's, people always naturally assume it's just, you know, swear words being randomly shouted out. But in his case, that's not necessarily the case. Like, he'll shout a few little random words out, like China or yeet or whatever.
Oh, yeah, so it was China for a little while,
it was
wasn't
China
it?
for a little while, and then it was yeet, this word that he had then realistically just made up by himself. And then he would not shout it, but he would say it a bit louder. And then, but he also, like, dabs, or it'll be like he twitches his hand. So it's not necessarily verbal, and sometimes it can be just twitching his hand or touching his trainer a lot, or dabbing a lot when he's getting really anxious and frustrated.
When you say dabbing, what does that mean?
When he's like sticks his hand across his face and then puts the other arm up, you know, like when children were doing the whole dabbing thing.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
that's what he does. So like he'll be really anxious and he'll be like, no, Tiny, you can't do that, and then he'll just start dabbing, and people used to think he was being rude, but it's not. It's like a tick, because the more people are trying to tell him something to do, the more it would happen. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily.
So it's a bit stimming. It's a bit like stimming, isn't it? Really. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So how else does the Tourette's? Do other children pick up on that?
I think they just think it's part of Tyler now, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Because Tyler is quite like a joker. He has like a really good sense of humour. So I think if he just randomly shouts out China, people just think Tyler's trying to be funny.
Right.
So
okay.
they're just used to it. So that's just who Tyler is.
He is actually really, really funny, isn't
Yeah,
he? He
he
really
is.
makes everyone laugh.
So yeah,
His sense of humour is really, really on point.
Yeah, so I think they just think, oh, that's who Tyler is, and you know, like they don't take it personally if he just randomly says China a bit louder because it's Tyler.
Yeah. So he's also got dyslexia as well, but you said he hasn't got it as severe as what Brooke has, the dyslexia.
Yeah, Brooks, hers is more. She finds it extremely hard to read, and then she finds it extremely hard to write. Tyler finds it more hard to get the words out of his head onto the paper.
Right. Okay.
If that makes any sense, he doesn't mind reading. It's not. It is hard, but it's not overly hard. Where Brooks is extremely hard for her to read it, but where they're both different. So Brooke masks her more because she'll remember when somebody's told her something, so then she doesn't have to read it. Whereas Tyler, he'll read it rather than trying to remember what anyone said.
Right. Okay.
So they're kind of both different ways.
Yeah.
With the
definitely.
dyslexia. So he would rather read it, try and understand it, whereas Brooke would rather hear it, remember it, then try and read it because she finds reading a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
So even though they both got dyslexia, it's harder for her because she can't physically read the words.
Okay.
So she can read a little bit, but if they aren't said how they're spelt or how they sound, then she finds it hard.
Yeah. And it's quite common, isn't it, that for quite a lot of things that girls are really good at masking.
Yeah.
You know, when they're at school, they're really good at mimicking what other people are doing and learning strategies and how to...
Yeah, in order to cope with it and to be able to kind of get on with it and not ask for help. And when I was speaking to the Senko at the school, they always say, yeah, girls mask it more, whereas boys, it will be more prominent because they don't mask it.
Yeah.
Because they would rather just be like, I just can't do it. Whereas girls, they don't necessarily like to ask for help and they'll always try to strategize a way in order not to seem like there's anything wrong. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. So yeah, you've got two quite complex children, even though Brooke is neurotypical, but still she learns differently. So that's challenging for you. And Tyler's one on his own, isn't he? I mean, his sense of humour is so hilarious and so brilliant.
Yeah, sometimes
but he's a handful, isn't he? Sometimes.
Oh yeah, he's always on the go, but then sometimes you want to be angry. Just let me be angry for a minute, and then he'll just come out with like the most random thing. You're like, I really shouldn't laugh right now. I just can't. No, just don't make me laugh. I'm trying to be angry here. Just give me a minute, okay? You want to be upset or angry for a minute, and then he'll come in and he'll just say something or do something. You're like, I just can't be angry now. Just okay, I'm out of it.
Yeah, so it's very entertaining around at yours, isn't it?
There's always something going on.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about your childhood now, because you were actually the sibling of a younger brother who has also got special needs. And he's called Christopher, isn't he? Yeah. So Christopher's 8 years younger than you, isn't he? So tell me a little bit about your childhood and what that must have been like for you.
So Christopher is the oldest out of the boys, so I'm the eldest out of 5. And then I have a sister and then 3 brothers, and Christopher is the oldest out of the 3 brothers.
Okay.
So one of 5 children is always a big family kind of going on. But Christopher has epilepsy, so he's always had special needs in a way. But when he was younger, they weren't called special needs, they were just called seizures, because he didn't actually get diagnosed with epilepsy until he was about 12 years old.
Wow, but he started having seizures when he was about 2 or 3, wasn't he?
Yeah, when he started nursery, he started having seizures.
Wow.
So, but they don't like to diagnose epilepsy until they're at least 10 years old, because once you get diagnosed with epilepsy, you can never get rid of the name. So, and because some children, they have seizures, what they call like temperature seizures, they used to call it back then, where your temperature gets too high and then you have a seizure. But people can grow out of that by the time that they're teenagers. But when you have epilepsy, you don't ever grow out of it. But they can't give you the name of epilepsy when you're 2 or 3, because if you grow out of it and you haven't had a seizure for 20 years, then you wasn't epileptic. You only had seizures.
Yeah.
But once you have epilepsy, it restricts you because then you can't drive, you can't like become a bus driver. So there's certain things that you can't do once you've been diagnosed with it. So they don't like to give a diagnosis of epilepsy until they really have to. But that was, you're talking about like 20 years ago now.
It must have been really different 20 years ago, because you were also saying that, the labelling of...
Yeah, it was completely different.
Because even though Christopher has got additional needs, which were probably part and parcel of the epilepsy as well, because you said every time he had a seizure it made him regress. But he's never got a diagnosis on top of that, has he? They just called it learning difficulties.
Yeah, because there wasn't kind of labels back then. It wasn't like autism, ADHD. There was no kind of specific label for children. It was all kind of learning difficulties. That was what it was called.
Yeah.
So if you had any kind of problem with learning, like whether it be autism, ADHD, global development delay, anything like that, it all came under learning difficulty, and that was it. Yeah. There wasn't no other kind of label to it. So it didn't matter whether you was like high needs, low needs, in the middle. It was all just learning difficulties.
Wow. So you said he was non-verbal as well, wasn't he? So
yeah, he used to talk until he started having the seizures, right. And then when he kept having the seizures, then he would go back. So then every time he would learn something, every time he would have a seizure, he would then regress, because every time you have a seizure, it damages your brain.
Yeah.
Because your brain is starved of oxygen. So the longer the seizures, the more damage. And the more you have, the more damage it does.
Yeah.
So after a while, your brain just doesn't cope. So if you had too many seizures over your lifetime, then your brain just doesn't grow. So even though he's now in his 20s, he has the mental capability of like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But an 8-year-old that doesn't have no sense of anything, so he has no sense of danger. He doesn't understand money. He can't read and write properly. So even though he's an 8-year-old, he wouldn't be a normal 8-year-old, shall we say?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's understanding that even though he's in a fully grown person's body, mentally, he's not.
Yeah, definitely. So that's really challenging. So he was non-verbal until he was about 10 years old, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So he talks now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't stop talking.
He doesn't stop talking. Oh, bless him. Yeah. So how was that for you, growing up with a sibling? Because didn't he go to mainstream school as well?
Yeah,
because he didn't have the diagnosis till he was 10.
Yeah, because he didn't have a diagnosis, and obviously seizures are just called seizures. He went to a mainstream school because he didn't have a label of any sort. And where he was non-verbal, children found it hard to communicate with him, and he couldn't communicate with the teacher. So if he wanted something, he couldn't just say, miss or mister. He would have to get up and then pull their arm and then, like try and call them over. Yeah. But then most of the time they would just tell him to shut up and go sit back down. Yeah. Like, just shut up, go sit back down, I'll deal with you later. That's a lot of what we had.
Awful.
And then some of the other children, not necessarily all of them, but there was a few that didn't like him because he couldn't speak. So like if he wanted something, he might like pull their arm a little bit to like get their attention. Yeah. And there was this boy that used to really pick on him to the point where he would stick pencils in his back and then break the lead off. So he actually go to hospital and have the lead removed from his back a few times because the pencil lead had been stuck in his back. So he now still has scars from where the boy had broken pencil lead off.
That's disgusting.
Into his back.
And nothing was done for this?
No.
Were the teachers not
yeah, they
doing
just
anything?
said, yeah, because this child doesn't like Christopher, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't like it was like a recurring occasion, so it happened at least 3 times. And I remember one time I had an altercation with the mum, and she said to me, it's not my fault if your brother's retarded. And I kind of lost my temper, and yeah, that wasn't a very good situation.
So you were always having to fight his corner because he was getting bullied a lot, wasn't he? And you were still a child yourself. You were going to school and everything as well. Oh, Sam, that sounds awful.
But it is what it is. Back then, people didn't. It's not how it is now. There's more understanding now, and there's more labels now. Back then, there wasn't. It was always like, oh, retard. That was it. That's what all special needs children were called, regardless of what label it would have been. It was always.
How did that make you feel?
I think it was more angry of not understanding. I think if you have like a brother or sister or somebody in your family, then you're more understanding. You know more because you take in more. Yeah. But when people just see it from the outside, they just don't know. It's only when you kind of let people in that they see and then they understand more. Because it's alright saying your brother has seizures, but they don't understand how that impacts on your life.
Yeah.
Until they see your brother convulsing on the floor.
Yeah.
And then not being able to do anything about it, and then them having to be taken to hospital, and then seeing them turn into a 4-year-old in front of your eyes afterwards from being, say, a 10-year-old.
Yeah. The way you used to regress.
Yeah.
That's so upsetting.
And then having to learn certain things all over there again, and then just constantly having to try to do the same things again and again and again.
So do you think having to fight your brother's corner all the time, and be his advocate really, and quite often his carer, do you think that's made you who you are today?
I think so. I think once you've kind of been brought up with additional needs, or somebody with additional needs, then it makes you more understanding. So like if I walk into a shop and say I can see like a child who's having a meltdown rather than a child just being naughty in the middle of a shop, if that makes any sense. So where some people walk into a shop and a child's having a meltdown in the middle of a supermarket, I would think, poor boy's having a meltdown. Whereas some people just walk in there and just say, you should just really give him a slap and sort him out.
Yeah, oh, I hate that.
Like, because people just judge. They don't know. They just judge. And I've had that before where people just look at you and say, I wouldn't take that. But you don't know anything. So keep your opinion to yourself and just be quiet. Go about your business. It isn't nothing to do with you anyway. Yeah. So I think for me, like if I can see a mum with a child having a meltdown in there, I'll be like, don't worry, love, we've all been there at one point in time, and you give that person reassurance that, do you know what, it is normal and it's going to happen. So then people don't feel bad, because when you're walking around and a child's having a meltdown, people just give you weird looks, like as if to say, you just got to know what child, just sort them out. Yeah. At least if somebody says something like reassurance, something like
positive,
do you know what,
like you're doing a good job, Mum.
Don't worry about it. We've all been there at one point in life, Just keep doing what you're doing. Then it makes them feel better about themselves.
It's so lovely to hear somebody in the public say something nice when you're kind of dealing with something that's
rather than
challenging.
Just getting dirty looks all the time.
Yeah, so I think because you're so compassionate and empathetic and non-judgmental, and that's definitely came from being the sibling of a child with additional needs, isn't it? Yeah. And also, you're hard as nails. And when I say that, I mean that in a really positive way, because you're a great advocate for your children. You don't mess about. You won't take no for an answer. You're a real tiger mummy.
I try to be. I just feel like, because where Christopher got left for so long, and like he didn't get what he needed to for years, and I've just seen the way it can go. Yeah. That when it comes to my children and what they need, I need to do what I need to do in order to get what they need. Yeah. Because if they need it, then that's what they need, and that's what they need to be entitled to. Yeah. Because most mums will just be like, oh, I didn't know that, and I don't necessarily know everything, but if my child needs it, I will get it done. Yeah. To what needs to happen in order for them to be okay. Yeah. Whether that's funding for an EHCP plan or CAMS or physiotherapy if you needed it, whatever it is. Yeah. And you fight all the way to get your children's needs met, and quite rightly so as well. But you're absolutely right. I think a lot of parents, the world of disability is completely new to them. They don't know how to navigate this broken system because it's completely new. They're grieving. A lot of parents haven't got that tenacity that you've got, and I think you've learnt that from
from being a carer at such a young age and seeing what your brother went through. You're absolutely right.
And I think it comes down to, partly it comes down to knowledge and understanding. So if you feel within yourself, like even when it comes to schools, if the school aren't supporting you, then that's not the right school for you. Like if your child has additional needs, and yeah, it may be great with children with no additional needs, and they might come highly recommended with everything, if they can't help you or adapt with you for your child, it is not the school for you. Because that's what I went through with Tyler.
Yeah.
So they would call me in every day and say to me, Tyler doesn't sit down, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't do this. And then when it came down to the assessment, apparently he was a golden child, he never done anything wrong. So he missed out on his ADHD diagnosis the first time. Then he went over to the juniors like 6 weeks later. Then 4 weeks after that, they were saying to me something was wrong. I said, I told you this when he had the assessment in there. I said, but your teacher said there was nothing wrong with him. He missed out on the ADHD assessment by 3 points. And then he had to have another assessment. And then that's when he got the ADHD diagnosis the second time.
Right.
But it was because the school didn't want to say that there was anything wrong with him.
And why
until
do you
he
think
went
that
over
was?
to the juniors.
Why do you think that is, that they didn't want to do that? Is it to do with money?
I think it's to do with money. I think it's to do with funding.
Yeah.
Because if a child gets diagnosed with any sort of special education needs, the school has to pay the six grand first for every child. So if they have any form of special needs, the school have an obligation to pay £6,000 for funding that the child needs.
Right, I didn't know that.
Before the council will pay for anything.
And so that's why they're reluctant of having children with additional needs.
The more children they have with additional needs, the more money they have to pay out.
Right, okay.
And I found that out from the CAMS worker. Because she said to me, some schools don't like to do it because they have to fork out 6 grand in order to get anything done for the child. And then when it costs more than £6,000, that's when they can try and apply to Haringey Council. But up until that, the school have to pay for it, even if they have an EHCP plan.
Yeah.
The school still has to pay out the first £6,000, and then the council, whichever council it is, then pay the rest of the money. But every school, whether it's an EHCP plan or a SEN plan, have to pay the first £6,000.
Wow. And this is why the schools, well, a lot of schools are failing our children because they just haven't got that money because of all of the cuts that have been happening.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, it's really upsetting, isn't it? So you were saying that your mum wasn't coping with Christopher's needs either as well. She used to panic a lot, didn't she, when he was having his seizures?
Every time he would have a seizure, not necessarily every single time, but most of the time she would just get really upset and really flustered, and then she would be kind of running around the house, crying, trying to call up an ambulance. But it's kind of fight or flight mode. She kind of done the opposite to what you need to do. So she kind of like took it all in and, wanted to be very upset and not be able to cope with what needed to be done, like put him in a recovery position, get the medication, administer the medication while you're talking to the ambulance. At the same time, she would be more flustering and trying to speak to the ambulance rather than putting him in a recovery position.
Yeah, so you were doing that, weren't you, really?
Yeah, if my dad wasn't there, because sometimes he would work away, then or if my nan, when she got sick, she couldn't do it. So it just depended on the situation at that time and who was in the house.
Yeah. Wow. So you've been caring as well for a really long time, because you said your nan got ill as well, didn't she?
Yeah, she had cancer.
So then you were caring for your nan. You missed out on a lot of school, didn't you?
Yeah, because obviously my nan was sick, Christopher had epilepsy, then my mum had depression at the same time, and sometimes my dad would work away for long periods of time doing his job. So it kind of came down to me, being the oldest, to help out.
Yeah. So
like I'll take my brothers and sisters to school some days, or I'll go with my nan to hospital appointments, but to me it was just normal because that's what I had to deal with at that time.
Yeah, well that's all you knew, wasn't it? So it was normal to you.
Yeah.
But actually you were a young carer.
Yeah.
And you're still caring now. And this has had an effect on your health as well, hasn't it? So do you mind telling me a little bit about your disability and your health matters?
Well, I got nerve damage from when they done a spinal tap wrong with my daughter, because it was a very complicated kind of pregnancy and then birth. So I had to have the spinal tap, which got done wrong. So then I got nerve damage in my spine, and then I got functional movement disorder. I got PTSD, anxiety, depression, and recently got diagnosed with unstable borderline personality disorder. So I kind of got a few things going on.
Yeah, you are.
But
yeah.
Yeah. So.
Do you think your mental health side of everything is due to you constantly caring for a very long time, and a lot of
with unstable borderline personality disorder, it all stems from childhood. So that is what's happened in the past and what you've kind of gone through. So that impacts on your life as you get older. So that's what unstable borderline personality disorder is. It stems from your childhood.
Okay.
So that's why you kind of get diagnosed with it when you get older.
Can you explain to me a little bit about how that presents itself?
So it's like moods. So one minute you can be really happy, next minute you can be really sad, next minute you can be fine. You can go minute by minute, and it can be like an emotional roller coaster.
Wow.
By minute, rather than with bipolar it would be like days.
Yeah.
With unstable borderline personality disorder, it goes by minutes.
Oh, wow.
Half an hour,
Okay.
an hour, it could be days. So you can go from being up, down, left, right, upside down, all in the space of about an hour and a half. So there's no kind of regulation. It's kind of all over the place.
And then when you throw your children in the mix, that must be really challenging, is it? When you're dealing with your own mental health challenges, and then Tyler can have his meltdowns and.
Yeah, but the only thing is I'm really good at masking everything, and this was the problem.
Oh, okay.
So nobody, because I kind of mask it really well, it was just put under the depression and the anxiety. But because I'm really good at masking it, because I have to be so regimented and so stable for Tyler, and kind of be in line and, do what I need to do, and always fight in his corner and getting everything I need to do, and everything being the way it is, I kind of put myself into a box and I keep myself there. And then even though it's happening in my head, I don't show it on the outside. And then that's what causes the problem.
Wow. So then what happens? Is there an explosion?
Yeah, then it kind of goes... Poop,
okay.
like inside.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's why I never kind of got diagnosed with it before, because I'm used to being stable and, being the one and having to do it all by myself and being and just doing it. I kind of hide it away from everyone.
Yeah.
And then it just doesn't get dealt with.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Because being the carer, you're always the last one to get any care.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Sam, you've been through it, haven't you?
It is what it is. I think it's just, to me, it's just who I am.
Yeah.
But because I don't show it, it's harder to diagnose.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So you have got a lot going on, and having your disability with the nerve damage, that affects you. So you've got a stick as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you probably had postnatal depression on top of that well, did you?
Yeah. I had it after Tyler because he had colic a lot. So he cried for like a whole year of his life, and he had bowel problems. So he would just cry all day long. So he would wake up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and then he would cry all day until about 9 o'clock, until he went to sleep. Wow. And then he would sleep all night, and then he would just cry all day. And then he would do the same thing every day.
So have you got any support around you? Do you get any support?
Well, my dad has the children. Like, my dad will take the kids for like a weekend and stuff, and then my nan will have the kids for a few days. Yeah. So over summer holidays I do get a bit of a rest.
That's great.
But during the term times and stuff like that, I don't. It's just it's just me. Yeah. Like, their dad may come and see them for like an hour or so, but other than that,
because you're single as well, aren't you?
It is just it's just me. I kind of do all the schools and try and do everything I need to do.
Yeah. You've got a lot of responsibility, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to the children for now, because we're going to come back to you in a bit. But tell me about the relationship that your children have with Christopher as well, because this is quite funny, isn't it?
Well, it is quite funny. Like, it drives me insane sometimes. I'm not even gonna lie. But because Tyler doesn't understand that, even though Christopher is a fully grown human being in his 20s, he doesn't understand that he has a mental capacity of like a 7-8-year-old. But because he looks like an adult, Tyler expects him to act like an adult, even though he knows that he has additional needs. But because Tyler can't grasp the fact that
the social aspect of the autism side,
that he shouldn't be, to him, he shouldn't be acting that way. He's an adult. He should be acting X, Y, Z, and that's how he should be. Rather than thinking, Christopher just wants to play with me because in his brain he's an 8-year-old, so he gets upset when I don't play with him because I don't want to play with him because he's an adult and he should be doing something else. So then they kind of get into arguments, and then Tyler's like, no, I don't want to play with you, you're stressing out my life, leave me alone. And then he's like, no, I'm not letting you out of the room because I want you to play with me, you know. So then I get phone calls when I'm on holiday saying, Christopher won't let me out of the room because I won't play with him. And then I have to ring up and then sort out the whole situation from the other side. But it's all because Tyler doesn't understand that Christopher isn't mentally how he is physically, which makes it harder.
I think a lot of people can't get their head around that, actually, because there's a lot of adults with additional needs who are developmentally like children, and there's just nothing or nowhere for them to go and play.
No, there isn't.
And you kind of think, you think of soft play centres and you think, oh God, some of these adults would love to be going in these places, but they're not allowed to.
No, and they're not big enough for an adult necessarily, because some people with additional needs, they have problems with overeating. So sometimes they are a bit bigger than like the normal average person, because they have a disorder which makes them feel like they're not full. So sometimes they wouldn't necessarily fit
interoception.
They wouldn't necessarily be able to fit in all the small spaces. Even
and also medication as well can put weight on some of our
so they wouldn't
children.
be able to necessarily fit even in a normal soft play, like through the tubes and stuff. Like even if you was like a size maybe 14, you might not be able to fit in them tubes, because they are really restricted. But I think it would be really good if it was bigger, like it was able to fit adults. And then you kind of have that place for adults to at least go and to be
It would
themselves.
be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'd love, if I won the lottery, I'd love to set something like that up. I really would. And when you think about playgrounds as well, it's a similar thing for playgrounds, because one, if an adult is trying to play in a playground, there's going to be a lot of concerned and worried parents, because these developmental delays, they're hidden, aren't they? So people
you don't
would be
necessarily see them.
People would be looking at an adult thinking what you're doing, want to play on the swings.
When there's little children around. Especially if you look like a fully grown adult, and then you're just going to park to sit on the swings, then people will be like, what are you doing here? Where's your children? Why are you in the park? Are you a paedophile? Like, especially if it's a man. That's like the first thing that pops into people's heads.
It is,
But you do have to be safe, so I understand that. But sometimes it's just because people are not developmentally as they should be. And I think that's kind of like the mixed kind of reviews that they get. That if they go play in the park, they're going to look like a paedophile, so they can't do it. So then they can't enjoy the things that they would necessarily enjoy. Which makes it a lot harder. Because once they turn into adults, there's not really anything for them.
It really worries me, actually.
They're kind of left to their own devices, and well, you're a fully grown adult now. There you go, get on with life.
There needs to be more activities and more things to do for adults who still want to play. Doesn't there? And maybe there are places. I'm sure there are places out there that do have this this available for adults. It's just finding them, isn't there, and finding what's going on in your community. Maybe having like one night a week in a soft play for adults. But yeah, maybe you said it still wouldn't work because the equipment's too small because it's made for children.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's trying to figure out things for the adults to do, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah. So in your challenging world, with everything that's going on in your world, what do you do to feel good in your challenging world?
Well, I go on holidays and I have a lot of breaks.
Yeah.
Like, I make a joke and everyone says to me, "Why are you so happy all the time?" And I'm like, "Prozac, it works very well for me."
Nothing wrong with medication if you need it.
But sometimes you just need to make a joke out of it, because
Yeah.
if you don't laugh, you're going to end up crying. So you
Yeah.
might as well just laugh it off at some point. Like, there's no point in being serious all the time, otherwise you drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
Take a break when you need to, because when you're dealing with so many things going on, it's easy to forget who you are or anything that you want to do, because you're used to doing 100 things all the time. You do forget about yourself, and you forget that you need to take care of you to a certain extent, because if you don't, who's realistically going to be looking after your children?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So yeah, try and find ways of just even having little breaks, like if it's a day to go and have lunch with a friend and just have a chat, or
yeah.
go on holiday with a friend if you can, or
Yeah, you've discovered going abroad, haven't you, lately?
Yeah.
Because you never done that when you were a child.
no, coming from a large family, going on
Yeah.
abroad on holidays really wasn't an option when you got 5 children, because the budget is just extremely expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we had Christopher with additional needs, and taking him on a plane
Yeah.
wouldn't work, and then it's being financially able to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, going abroad is always a good
Yeah.
incentive, because I find that even if I have a break, if I'm at home, I still end up doing stuff that I'm not meant to be doing, because I just think, do you know what, I'll do that, and then it's over and done with out the way. Like whether it's sorting out the children's clothes, or trying to paint the room, or reorganising, or sorting out toys. But if I'm away, even if it's just like not in the house, then I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So it is an actual break, rather than just thinking, oh yeah, I'm just going to have a nice day at home, and then I end up doing 110 things I'm not meant to be doing.
Oh, I get that. I'm with you there. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad tells me off all the time. He's like, "Are you actually having a break?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm just trying to build a set of drawers." And he's like, "What? Why are you building a set of drawers?" And I'm like, "Because the other ones are falling apart, and it's been like a year now, and I still haven't done it." And he's like, "You're meant to be having a break, not building a set of drawers. I can build them." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're over there and I'm over here, and while I'm here, I might as well just do it."
I think in your case of being a carer all the way through your life, really, it must be really weird to actually, when you do have some time to you, and it's all about you, that must feel quite weird for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I'm not used to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I had Tyler quite young, so I was 20 when I had him. So I wasn't exactly I hadn't completely lived my life, but I did to a certain extent, because I was younger. I used to go out raving a bit, what have you. So I don't really feel the need to do like some people that have children really young and then they want to go out and party all the time. I kind of partied it all out. So I don't mind travelling, but I don't really feel the need to party. I'm more of a go out for a meal, have a nice relaxing time in, or have a few drinks with friends, or go on holiday kind of thing.
Good. I'm really pleased to know that you're actually caring for you as well, because it is really important, because you have got a busy, hectic life, and you're absolutely right. If you're not caring for yourself, if something happens to you, what's going to happen to your kids?
My dad says it to me all the time. He's like, "But I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do this," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I can do it myself and it's fine." And he's like, "But you're not meant to." And I'm like, "But because I'm so used to caring for everyone, I'm used to doing everything myself. So even when I should ask for help, I don't, because I'd rather just do it myself." Do you find that
difficult? Do you find it difficult to ask for help?
Yeah, because I'm just used to doing it.
Yeah.
I don't. Like, so when the kids were younger, even though I wasn't with their dad, I never asked anyone to have the children. So I never got a break. And my dad used to say, oh, yeah, I'll have the kids for like a night. And he used to be like, no, it's fine. I don't want to, you know, like, it's fine. They're my children. I'll deal with it. It's fine. And then because Tyler was showing signs of like ADHD or autism or whatever it was then, it was kind of like I didn't want anyone to see that there was anything different.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Because when they don't have a diagnosis, you just don't know whether it's you just thinking that there's something or whether there is actually something going on. So people used to say to me all the time, oh, why don't you apply for this and why don't you apply for that? And why don't you apply for this? I'm like, no, I'm not applying for anything. My child doesn't have a diagnosis. I don't necessarily know that there's anything wrong with him. It might just be that I need new parenting skills. You know, like I'm not willing to accept.
Do you think you were in denial?
No, do you know
because it was quite different to what you knew of your brother Christopher and his type of additional need. Tyler's additional need is very different to your brother. So it was more difficult to see, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you can't see it because Tyler's is a hidden disability, isn't it?
Yeah, like with Christopher's, because he had epilepsy, you can see him having the seizure. You see that it's there. You know that there's a reason why he is kind of the way he is mentally from all the damage to the brain and all the seizures, etc., etc. But with Tyler, he was just a normal child, like every other child. And then as he got older, then the signs started.
Because he didn't have speech delay, did he?
No, he could talk full sentences by the age of 1.
Wow.
Like full-blown sentences, like he could talk your ear off. But he just never crawled. So he missed out the whole crawling stage.
Okay.
So even when I think about it, there's little bits and bobs in between, but they never kind of add up because they're like, oh, boys are lazy anyway. You know, like people used to say that all the time, oh, boys are just lazy. Yeah. So he never actually crawled.
Did you also hear he'll grow out of it?
Yeah, that was all of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a boy thing. Don't worry about it. They're all like that. As they get older, they'll grow out of it. And then you just think, you know what, maybe it kind of just is a boy thing because, you know, boys are different to girls and sometimes they're a bit lazier, etc., etc. And then that's what you used to get all the time. Oh no, it's normal, don't worry about it. But then as they get older, there's more and more things that kind of come out, and then you think, okay, maybe there is something else going on here. So by like the age of 3, that's when I started noticing that he was different to all the other children.
So it sounds to me as if you were doubting your parents' skills as well in them early days when you weren't too sure whether he, you know, there was something going on with him, because you were saying about parent courses and stuff.
You just never know, because sometimes, like, you see all these people and they're like, oh, it's just down to parenting. Maybe they're just like, you know, maybe they just need to do things differently and do this and do that. And maybe, I just thought maybe if I tried something different, it might work. But I done everything and it didn't work. It didn't change anything.
And
if that
do you
makes any
think it
sense.
was because you were quite young at the time as well? So you
Yeah,
didn't have the confidence, did you?
But you always get them looks. Like even though I'm like 30 now, people still look at me like I'm like 19 because I've got such a young face.
Yeah.
So people are like, "Can I have your ID?" And I'm like, "Do you mind?" He came out of me and he's like nearly 11 years old about ID. But I suppose when you have a young face, people just naturally assume that you are younger and that you don't know what you're doing. And it wasn't necessarily that, because I had already kind of had my brothers and my sisters and helped out with that. So I kind of knew what I was doing.
Oh, for sure, definitely.
To a certain extent, but you always kind of think, is it something that I'm doing? Can I do anything differently? Is there anything I can do in order to make anything different? Because you never know. Yeah. So I kind of tried everything out. I'd done all the courses. I'd done everything I was meant to do. And it just didn't work. Like nothing changed, because you can't change a person. So I was trying to change my parenting skills, but even that didn't help, because it wasn't my parenting skills that was the problem. Yeah. It's just his additional needs. Yeah.
So, thank you. Wow, that's really touched me, because you're doing an amazing job, Sam. You do know that, don't you?
Try to.
Yeah.
I think we all feel like that at some point, don't we?
Yeah, you really are doing a great job, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I think this is going to really touch a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to join me today. To find out more about what I do, visit www.samsmith.co.uk. specialworldtraining.com, and follow us on our Facebook page Special World Training, Instagram and LinkedIn. I believe knowledge is power and strength is in numbers, and if more people get involved in our special world, we can all make our world a better place. Join me next week for more amazing stories from the good, the bad and the ugly.